Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, it's me, Rahdo.
Yes, and we're back on Friday. And if you've never seen me before, I'm
Yeah,
from the
Tom, what are
Dice
you
Tower.
doing here?
I'm invading your channel.
Yeah. He's
On
so lonely, folks, that he had to find some way to get into somebody else's personal space.
I, I gotta say, I was thinking today that need makes technology happen, right? So there is a need now for this human connection. I didn't know much about Zoom, but
Yeah.
everybody's using Zoom now and
Yep.
Skype and different ways to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I hope
So,
this is a boost for Tabletopia and Board Game Arena and Tabletop Simulator and all that. I'm sure it must be.
oh, I know it is, and I'm curious to know if the numbers for those have gone up
Yeah.
in oh no, I know the numbers have gone up, but I'm curious to see if when all this calms down, if those numbers will stay up.
They'll stay. If people finally get over their reticence to experience games this way, because, hey, that wasn't so bad. And there were definite advantages. Yeah.
So we have three segments to this show that we do, and we're doing the show right now twice a week. Do not expect that to continue indefinitely because we got other things to do. What's the game now? I'm trying.
This is what I'm filming as soon as we're done. It's Excavation Earth. Very neat little game. It's 2,000
Looks
years in the
good.
future. Humans have disappeared, and now aliens have come to find all kinds of lost relics and artifacts like Godzilla toys and stuff like that. And there's a market for buyers, and so you're traveling around digging stuff up and selling them, digging stuff up and then selling high, crashing the market, manipulating things, special powers, all that kind of stuff.
Who's the publisher?
It is Mighty Boards Games, and the designer is Dave Turcci, who is certainly on a roll for the last few years.
I do like his stuff. All right,
Yeah.
cool. All right, folks. So the first thing that we do in these shows, besides me asking Rahdo what he's playing, which will probably happen every time,
Yep.
is we go to Board Game Geek and we look at one of the mechanisms there. So today's mechanism is action points.
Right. And we didn't skip any, right? I know we skipped acting, but
We skipped
I
acting,
imagine
but no,
that-
this is the third one on the list.
okay, cool.
So action points is an interesting thing that this on Board Game Geek here, it says you get a certain number of action points in your turn. You can spend those on a variety of actions. And the earliest example of this on Board Game Geek is Special Train from 1948. And I don't know.
Classic. Man, I've had so many good hours with Special Train.
Well,
'Cause-
it's a real two-player game gem from the early post-war days. There's 20 hand-painted locomotives in it. You have 3 express trains. You got to get all your trains from the starting station to the opposite side of the board. This actually sounds a little Euro-y. Maybe, I don't know.
It does actually, and an action point system does certainly lend itself to more strategic play.
Huh. Well, I noticed action points. They were made, to me, I think in board gaming, they were made fairly popular by Kramer and Kiesling.
Exactly. The Tikal and the other two that I can't remember the name of. Mexican.
Well,
that whole
Taurus,
trilogy.
Taurus, Tikal, Mexica, and Java. Although Java's been renamed. I'm trying to remember. So we have a list of these games here, and I'm listing them by number owned.
Number owned. I am now looking at that myself because I can't see your screen.
All right. Well, there we got the same one. So the top one here is easily the most famous of all these games.
Yep.
Pandemic. How many action points do you get?
You get 4, sir.
Unless you're playing the awesome generalist, who gets
The
5.
I would argue the most powerful, only because every other class in that game is amazing, but in certain circumstances. But it is very, very rare that you can't find a use for 6 actions instead of 4, which makes the generalist, well, generally all around the best. I have to admit, though,
I thought it was 5.
Is it 5?
Yeah,
oh,
maybe.
Well, the audience will correct us. Pandemic, I get it. Strictly speaking, it is an action point system, but it doesn't feel like it. to me, you were right to bring up Tikal and the other Kramer and Kiesling games, because in those games, what is it? You get like 10 points, I think, and they literally give you a menu of actions, and some things cost 2 points, and some things cost 1 point, and all that. That, I really feel like the points come through. In Pandemic, you just say, oh, you get to do 4 things this turn, but at no point do they talk about the points. But it is a good valid
Yeah,
one.
but I think I like it better when everything's 1 point. You could sit and look at that board and to call for a while and be like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 points on this. It's almost like currency, right? You have this $10 a turn,
Yeah.
and you can spend it on stuff. But you see the second one here is Forbidden Island, which is essentially not the same game, but same designers, same stuff.
Yep.
Pandemic Legacy. Dead of Winter, I don't know if that one counts, but
I have to admit, I've never played it.
I'm trying to think. On your turn, yeah, I guess you have a certain number of things you could do on your turn. What about Takinoko?
Takinoko, wait, is that the one with the panda, or is that the one with
Yeah, it's the
walking
one with the
back?
panda. You get a certain number of actions, and you're eating bamboo and moving stuff.
I guess. Here's the thing, though. And somebody is Skyping me, and I'm going to have to say I'm live now. By the way, I'm live. I don't know if people are picking up on that. Tikal in those games, because, the whole game is about, I have these points. How am I going to use them? Here's a menu of all the stuff you can do. And I do think, to really feel like an action point game, things have to cost different amounts, which is why Pandemic, all actions cost 4. But it occurs to me, having said this out loud, is there at any point any Pandemic special effect card or player ability that lets you do some really cool, powerful thing that does take 2 of your 4 action points? Because if there's not, it occurs to me, Matt Leacock is really missing a trick to mix up his core formula. I wonder if I can't think if they've done that
maybe
in
in
the
Pandemic
game.
season, maybe in Pandemic Season 3 that will happen, and you're seeing the future.
There you go. We've looked ahead. That would actually be a real improvement of using the action point system to better effect. But, Tikal, as much as I loved it, especially the mini Tikal variant, which you can find on Board Game Geek, which is really nice, Jen and I, we ultimately had to give up with it because we didn't call them, the board game manual literally calls them AP points, or APs. You get 10 APs. And for us, those are 10 analysis paralyses, because that game is so insane. Yeah. 10 things, this costs 3, this costs 2, these 5 cost 1. I loved it, but man, it was so much overhead. And so I would point to Tikal and its brethren as an example of probably taking action points too far. But on the flip side, Pandemic not taking it, doing as much with it as they could, potentially.
Yeah. So what do you think about... Okay, so the next game I have here on the screen is Blood Rage. Now, I know you haven't played Blood Rage, and you probably have no desire to. But
I actually have,
What?
in a very strange... I played it by myself. I used it as a test bed. I'm sure you're familiar with that, the Teach You a Board Game app. Was it Dized? D-I-Z-E-D? I'm
Yes.
sure you've heard of it. I did a video for Dized, and I used myself as a guinea pig and said, all right, Dized, teach me how to play Blood Rage. And I went out and got a copy of Blood Rage, and I just filmed myself going through the whole process. So I have only played it solo, which is not how anybody has played it. But I have a
Blood Rage
passing
does,
familiarity.
it has a certain amount of... I don't remember what they're called now, but a certain amount of stuff that you can spend per round.
Yeah.
And so different things you do might cost more. So it's like action points, but they're spread throughout a round rather than on your turn.
Yeah.
And then the next one down here...
Yeah.
Flashpoint, that one is like Pandemic, but it's a cooperative game, but you could use more than one action. Like I think it costs 3 actions to shoot the giant fire hose.
I never would have said it in a million years, but there is an example where Flashpoint is superior to Pandemic then. I know you love Flashpoint. It's really kind of a swing and a miss for us. I get it. It's so thematic. It really comes alive. But, Jen and I found, we really missed the Pandemic deterministic nature of where elements are going to strike because, these 5 cities have gotten hit. We reshuffle the cards, put it back on top, and now we know those are the 5 hot cities, as opposed to Fire, the Fire game where, it could just be anywhere. Roll the dice. It is neat. I love the miniatures in the updated version, but yeah. But yeah,
That's
is
interesting.
Cool. Why does Pandemic not do this? They They must do it.
He sold a lot of copies. I think he's okay. Did you?
Oh, but think how many more he could have sold.
He has an article in the New York Times right now. He's
Yeah, I need to read that, actually, yeah.
Let's see. Photosynthesis has a certain number of action points that you can spend.
Yeah.
To build trees, to grow trees. They all cost it. It's like that one for some reason feels currency-ish. And then here's Tikal. That's the one we talked about the most. I must say, I don't know how popular that is because no one else has really copied that where you have this 10 action points.
I do think they proved that this is maybe not the best idea, that you can take a good solid mechanism that can be used in a lot of ways way too far. Tikal is the ultimate. Here's an interesting thing. We were talking about this game right in front of me, Excavation Earth. The whole game is run off of the fact that at any given time I've got a hand of cards, and we draft for them, and standard Seven Wonders style. Every round, I get to play 2 cards from my hand, and I use them to move or excavate or export goods and stuff like that. Strictly speaking, that means because I play 2 cards every round, this is an action point game. Every round I get 2 action points, which I spend to play a card. Which lends me to believe that the definition of action point really isn't that useful. I mean, what games aren't action points? If there's any game out there where you can do more than one thing on your turn, it is implicitly an action point game, isn't it?
Well, I would argue that an action point game is a game that has a currency that is temporary. So
that if you use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it, and that you have options. It's not a game where it says take this action and then you can optionally take this action.
Yeah.
There's other games that do that too. They'll say on your turn, pick one of these 3 actions. That's not action points. I mean, unless you're going to say you have 1 action point. That's
well, you do.
I know.
Game is an
sure,
action
but
point
that's
game where you
at
have
that
one
point.
Action.
At that point, we're deliberately widening the definition. So.
I like that though. That's taking it too far.
I'm looking down through the list for other games. There's a lot of games on here that have I think that they're being stretched to put on the list, but Burgle Brothers might fit the list.
Sure. Well, yeah, because so many games like Burgle Brothers owe everything to that pandemic formula. I mean, pandemic.
That's true.
When we did our top 10 most influential games, I would have had to give it to Pandemic because it feels like at least 20% of all cooperative games that come out every year are right. You get 3 or 2 or 5 action points. Here's your list of things you can do. And really, you're running around a map fighting fires, sometimes literal, sometimes metaphorical. And, Above and Below is here. I actually like that because, they're points, but the points are physically represented by your little people. Because some people call that, isn't Above and Below a worker placement game? But not really. I've got these people, and yes, I put them in the spent column, but it's not like I send them to specific actions. I just, I'm spending this person because each one of those people represents an action point. Like you said, each one of those people is effectively a resource. So while I might have poo-pooed it, I do think that fits very appropriately for Above and Below.
Then we got Zaya. I think I'm farther ahead than you.
Yeah.
Moving around.
Yeah, I only just started scrolling again.
What about a game like Raptor? Have you played Raptor?
No, because you spend all your time trying to kill each other.
No. You are trying to capture. You're trying to capture baby raptors for ethical purposes, and the mother raptor is gently nudging the scientists to sleep.
That was not made clear to me in my original investigation into the game. I had no idea. I mean, that's an asymmetrical warfare game, right? You're the raptor moving stuff around.
Sure, it actually feels more like an abstract strategy game than anything else.
Yeah.
Jambo or Jumbo? Does that have action points? Let's see. I think you have 4 on your turn, right, to use.
Man, I haven't played Jumbo in a billion years.
It's been a while. I know I really like it, and I'm trying hard to remember what's in it. Western Legends has action points, yes, as you run around.
Yeah, yes, very much so. Yeah, actually, Western Legends kind of feels like it owes to Pandemic that same basic structure, except, hey, what if Pandemic were in the Old West and competitive instead of cooperative? Now that I think about it. And it really is that notion. which I didn't make that connection between. They're both action point games.
So I think you and I can both agree then that Tikal and Pandemic are like the two linchpins
polar
here.
opposites. Yeah.
But I mean, Tikal started this, hey, let's make a whole lot of games of action points. And Richard Brees.
I believe Special Train started it.
Oh, that's true.
Credit where credit is due, because it was such a huge jump from regular Train.
I'm pretty sure we just did that list of the most influential games, and I would pick the first one, and then you'd say, no, it's the one that made it popular. But I'm saying Tikal made it popular, although not many people other than Kramer and Kiesling, and I think Richard Brees did it in his key games a little bit. But then Pandemic, he took and just said, here's a few action points, spend them.
Yeah.
And then
but it completely abstracted that concept away, because when you're playing it, you don't feel like, right, I have this resource and I'm spending it. The resource is action points. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a stealth action point game. I see Trickerion on here, and I think that's a really interesting addition, because strictly speaking, my first thought was, no, Trickerion is a worker placement game. It's pure, straight-up worker placement. But every worker has action points associated with them, right? Or is it the spaces? Because, as I recall, if I send my worker out, the one that represents me, I get to do 3 actions of the worker placement spot. Or if I send my assistant, they only have 1 action point to spend to do whatever worker placement spot I said. So that's a really cool idea of fusing action points to individual workers. I really like that quite a bit.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to action points in a game, and let's say you have 4 on your turn that you can do.
I have 4.
Do you like a physical representation of that, or do you prefer to keep track in your head?
That's a good question.
Because sometimes I get a game and they give you these 4 tokens, and I'm like, I don't need these tokens. Until then I forget.
Yeah, exactly. So I know there are some games I have covered on Kickstarter, and I complained vociferously that they didn't have those. Like, I think one of the Valeria games, one of the smaller card games, it starts out, look, you just get to do whatever, 2, 3, 4 actions. And it should be easy to remember that. You're just going to play 4 cards. But if you play a card that can trigger some insanely complex chain of reactions and all kinds of stuff, by the time you're all done, was that my second or my third action? And so I did actually play, and I believe they put them in after the fact. And then when I finally got the copy, we then proceeded to play without them, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think what they did is they said, hey, look, here's the action trackers. Every time you do an action, take it, hand it to the player to your left. When you're out of them, you know your turn is over. And that's smart. But it is a shame that it feels kind of fiddly. And
it really does.
Yeah.
I don't know a good way to do it, because almost every game where I've had them, we start using them, and then halfway through you get so excited that you forget. And I think it's okay as long as the game doesn't give you bonus actions. Like, it's the Dominion problem.
Yeah,
where I play Dominion and +2 actions. And then for one of those actions, I play another +2 actions. So wait a minute. How many actions do I still have? Is it 3 or 4? And that sort of thing sometimes can get me.
That is true. We have definitely had Dominion layouts where we actually have like these little transparent chips that we just keep on the table because they have a million uses. And one of them is, right, okay, put the chip on, okay, I've done that action on that card, and I've done that action on that card, because you're right, turns can just get insane for such a simple little game. The old ABC volume, explodes very, very quickly. So I do agree. I mean, ultimately, that kind of tracking is something that is perfect for digital app integration into board games.
That's
keeping
true,
track of what you're doing. So, look, I just want to focus on what I can do, and it's easy to forget, my bookkeeping. And I love it when a game can do bookkeeping like that. Or, the digital implementation.
I do like that, and I have to say, though, overall, this is a mechanism I like. I like having, it feels like you have a bit of freedom. Like, on my turn, I'm going to do something.
Yep.
I'm going to spend 2 things doing this. I'll spend 1 on this and 1 on this. And I did a few things. As opposed to some games where you do 1 thing on your turn and it might be a boring thing. In this game, it feels like you get to do something interesting. I don't know.
You're right.
It's like an allowance.
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head more than anything else. This approach to a game structure gives the player the sense of freedom to explore what their options are and try to feel clever that they come up with a solution, rather than probably, strictly speaking, the more traditional, hey, you just get to do one thing. Here's a list of things you can do. Move a pawn, play a card, and your turn is over. Here, I can have, sometimes they're really simple turns. I'm just going to use all 4 action points just to move from here to here because we're desperate for me to be over there. And sometimes I'm going to use those action points, and it creates this kind of ebb and flow that I do think is strong. And probably, I mean, could Hearts make use of action points in some way? I don't know.
Magic the Gathering. You can play a big... I'm going to bring it up every time now.
Yeah, exactly. I do like that, though. Magic the Gathering, one of your action points is just create a land. You have landless decks, and you get 3 action points. Playing a spell costs 2. Oh, man, yeah, you could totally... I just want to keep fixing... Every week we just have to find another way to fix Magic the Gathering here. It's clearly
okay.
What this show is meant to be, I think.
All right, folks. All right. Next, we have a top 5 that we're going to do better than last week. So tell folks how this works.
Well, okay, folks, this is where you step up to the plate. Start making suggestions for things you would like the official top 5 countdown of. And Tom will look them over. He'll pick a few. I will make the final choice. And then we will dynamically, right in front of you, like magic, come up with the definitive, for all times, top 5 best of whatever it might be. It could be game related. It doesn't necessarily. It could be pop culture related. It could be. I know Tom wouldn't mind some food related options. So I imagine in about 30 seconds we're going to start seeing some suggestions. And last time, it was our first time, and Tom was just saying before we started today that we skipped the last part of saying definitively this is it. We just kind of, I came up with 3, he came up with 2, and we said, well, I guess that equals 5. Do we need to be a little bit more regimented here? Because I like the idea of vetoing if Tom comes up with something absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, so let me see. Oh my! They just jumped up here. Oh, that's a good one.
All right.
I got 2 so far, and let's see.
There are some very interesting choices in here.
That's a good top 10 I'm going to do someday, so I'm going to not do that one. It's top 5 games that make you feel powerful.
That is a good one. I'm surprised you haven't already done that.
Well, there's a lot of things that we haven't done.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. The top 5 board game podcast, that'd be a little on the nose there. All right, here we go. So these are kind of generic, but I got them for you. So top 5 spices.
Okay.
Spices. Top 5 big cats in honor of the tiger guy on Netflix right now.
I still need to watch this show, apparently.
Yeah, you do. The top 5 NES games, not SNES games, but NES games.
Ooh.
And the top 5 fantasy races.
Wow. I have no choice. I have to go with NES games because for folks who don't know, I was a video game developer for 20 years, and the first few years of my life in the video game industry was being a Nintendo gameplay counselor in Seattle, Washington. So I spent thousands of hours on the phone talking people through how to get the Maui ball and Metroid and stuff like that. So I'm tempted to do fantasy races, but I think that'll have to wait for another day. I think we have to do NES games. Wow, and there are so many. This is the greatest video game system of all time.
Right, I have to actually think. Really, I think SNES is, but all right.
I imagine for you it's going to be a little bit easier to go SNES. I'm totally cool with that.
No. I could do both. I can do both. I'm just saying that you said it was the best. I was going to argue.
I don't think. I think I was maybe a bit hyperbolic. If for no other reason that the Super NES has Zelda: Link to the Past, which is the greatest video game in history. So you kind of have to give it to the Super NES for that game alone.
Alrighty, so for NES.
All right. The first one, I mean, do I want to throw out? I am going to throw out the original Final Fantasy, or Final Fantasy 2, or Final Fantasy 3 if you got the Japanese versions, because I think Final Fantasy 3 never actually came out.
3 was, if you're saying if you have the Japanese, but I don't think that one was out.
Yeah, well, Final Fantasy III in America had jumped over to Super NES, if I recall correctly. But I honestly think Final Fantasy I is the best of the series, because by the time you get to Final Fantasy VII, for my taste, it went so far off the rails. The entire, and I know this is blasphemy. I'm sure I can see I'm a blasphemer, but the original Final Fantasy, where you actually created a party of 4 characters and you actually gave them names, they very quickly dropped that idea. And the early game almost felt more like a precursor to Final Fantasy Tactics, because it wasn't about the story, it was about leveling up those characters and making tough tactical decisions in combat, because the game could be pretty punishing if you did not play smart. Of course, it introduced everything. Not that I think Dragon Warrior predates Final Fantasy when it boils right down to it, so you do have to give props to Dragon Warrior. Although in the original Dragon Warrior, you only had 1 character. How boring was that? But the original Final Fantasy, the entire video game RPG industry traces back to that. And for my money, it is still the best one.
I mostly disagree with you here. I mean, 7 is clearly amazing, and 6 is clearly amazing. So is 10.
Experience. It's a terrible actual game.
What? I played it. Okay. Anyhow.
Yes.
Even though I disagree with you on that, I do agree that it should be on the list. So that's
okay. We
Final
have
Fantasy.
one.
Okay.
Give me
so
some.
here's, on one hand, I want to say Mario because it's a classic game. It actually was sold with the system for a while.
The real question
and I played
is
a ton of it.
Mario? Yeah,
well, that's the thing. I'm going to get to it. Not Mario 2, even though it's interesting and unique. It's not really Mario. It's actually a skin over another game. So I'm going to jump to Mario 3.
Yeah, this weird Arabian Nights game, if I recall correctly.
I'm going to pick
Although
Mario.
It was very cool. And Mario 2 did a lot of really cool, important things. But I know where you're going, and I have to agree. Super Mario Brothers 3.
It introduced a lot of things. It had that overworld map.
The overworld map, yep.
It had the different hats you could get that are still being used even in the latest game on the Switch. Yep. To me, I remember as a kid, I would sit around and I would design these levels in my head, which you could actually do now.
Now you can do, with Mario Maker, right?
And I just thought it was this idea of this kingdom that had, I don't know, it was just weird to me. It was such a neat system.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, that game is such an incredible burst of creativity. And because if you look at what came before, look, I'm just a little guy, I'm moving from left to right, I can climb up some stuff, I can bop stuff with my head. To where, they were introducing like forced auto-scaling levels, which they used in a lot of different ways for underwater sequences. And like I said, the hats, never mind the fact that it made America fall in love with Fred Savage. Did you see the movie? I forget the name of it. The
Wizard?
The Wizard, yes. I think, I was going to say it was The Master. Because I remember trailers for that movie came out before Super Mario 3 came out, and people went to see that movie in theaters so they could get a sneak peek of what was in Super Mario 3, because the big tournament at the end of the game where he had his Karate Kid triumphant moment was him, I think, making one of the turtle shells bounce back and forth between 2 things and score him a lot of points. I still remember that. And I was a full-grown adult at the time, and I was excited about it. It was such a video game cultural milestone. Yes, Super Mario Brothers 3, I think, probably makes my top 10 video games of all time when it comes right down to it.
Well, then I picked well.
I think so, yeah. All right, I'm going to give you one that I think you might veto me on. Maybe because you don't even remember it, but I thought it was amazing. I think it was called, I'm going to just look up the name just to make sure I've got it. I believe it was called Tropical Island. Fairly generic name. Tropical Island NES. Is that the one? So, no, Startropics. Startropics, there's an interesting through line for video game history at this point, where NES came out and kind of established a pattern that was formed by, Zelda and Master Blaster and Fester's Quest and Metroid, that games, you just assumed that they, not only were they nice, fun action things where you're fighting bad guys and stuff like that, but they were always adventure games where you would level up, you had to explore a world, and it was incredibly common. Even Fester's Quest, Addams Family knockoff game had that full formula. But then the Genesis came out, and it carried over into Super NES. But then the Genesis came out and gave us Sonic the Hedgehog. And Sonic the Hedgehog was an important game, but it radically changed the industry. And almost overnight, people stopped making these really cool, awesome adventure games, and things just became much more simple. Just play some kind of gimmick, just get from left to right, finish the game, and it felt like we almost reverted back to original Super Mario Brothers. Anyway, that's just like a bit of a history lesson. But Startropics, I think, was one of the last great NES adventure games. You were a little kid. You were almost kind of going on a Goonies-esque adventure because, hey, just right in your backyard, you had no idea. There was all these dangers, and your yo-yo was your primary weapon. And it took some of the ideas you expect from these games, but
that's right, the yo-yo. Now I'm remembering.
Yeah, it's coming back to you. Because it was kind of a cross between Super Mario 3 and Legend of Zelda, because it was an overhead view. You were moving around in 2 dimensions, but because you were jumping, which people don't remember, you didn't do in the original Zelda. It became more of a 3D experience, and I was really fond of it. In part because, as a Nintendo gameplay counselor at the time, I had to know that game backwards and forwards because it had such a huge marketing push from Nintendo. Everybody was playing it, and everybody got stuck because it was also a very, very hard game. So it may not be a crowd pleaser, but I loved Startropics.
That's definitely something today. Games are much easier in the sense of, if I can't figure it out, I can go to the internet. Yeah. And they're just easier to the point where one of the games that I like a lot, but I didn't necessarily put on this list, is I like Legend of Zelda 2, Link's Awakening. Is it Link's Awakening, I think?
Yeah, Link's Awakening, the side-scrolling one, yes.
And I recently, on one of my systems, I got it. I think it was a Switch. I can't remember. And I was like, I had such a problem with this as a kid, but now I'm an adult. I could beat this thing. And oh my word, this game is hard. It's so hard.
Oh my God, yeah. They all were. As a young man, you had the reflexes that you no longer have.
I don't think I had them ever.
You have been trained to not use your skills.
I don't know if those are skills. Okay, I'm going to put this as a star for now because I haven't played it, so I can't necessarily jump on that one. All right, the next one I got is actually adventure games because I really like those a lot.
Yeah, sure.
And there's a lot in this genre. Like I almost put not Metroid because I say that for NSCS.
Okay.
But I'll put Castlevania.
Yes.
Castlevania.
You get no argument from me there.
Which I think was it was either Castlevania. I can't remember which one was the one that spawned this genre of this basically moving through this gigantic place. And in Castlevania, it's a castle, and slowly upgrading your weapons, slowly, maybe sometimes seeing a boss and saying, you know what, I'll come back later. And when I first saw that, it was fascinating because in Mario, you didn't have a choice. Yep. When you ran into Bowser, you're fighting Bowser. In Castlevania, you could be like, Simon can't handle this. I'm going to go kill a bunch more guys.
I'm not going to go through that door. Yeah, let's go left instead of right. Let's go down those stairs, yeah.
And I just heard that one of these is on the iPad now. I think Symphony of the Night, maybe? Anyhow, I'm jumping around.
That's one of the most popular ones, definitely.
But I really like this genre, and even though on SNES, Metroid was the one for me, but on a regular NES, I'm going to go with Castlevania.
Yeah, you could give that nod to Castlevania or Metroid when it boils right down to it. I think they're both equally deserving, and I'm happy to give it to Castlevania because, it's stuck to its gun. It's still producing really great side-scrolling adventure stuff. So yeah, I'm totally happy with that.
Jason points out here, Castlevania has the best music.
That is definitely true. That is definitely. In a time of 8-bit graphics, it exuded theme, and it created a world much more than most of its contemporaries, I think. So yeah, I'd give it for that. Okay, here's one that you can't really deny. Although
I will now.
Okay, well, Tetris.
Oh, never mind. I was going to say Tetris for my next pick, so you're fine.
Oh, there you go. I mean, if you wanted to, you could call an audible because Tetris really broke out on the Game Boy.
Yes, that's where I played it first.
Exactly. It's where everybody played it. It's the reason Game Boy was a runaway success. It was the killer app that made people go buy Game Boys so they could play Tetris and get that music stuck in their head. And it's a shame because it eventually got ported to the NES by Nintendo, and at the same time, Atari got the license directly from, I can't remember the name of the designer, and they made their own version of Tetris, and both the official Nintendo Tetris and the Atari unofficial, black market Tetris came out at the same time, and the Atari one was so much better. I mean, it was generationally ahead. It actually supported two-player competitive, which ultimately we got in Dr. Mario down the road. But Atari did it right off the bat, and it was fantastic. But nobody could get it because Nintendo shut it down so they could push their own. But yeah, Tetris is, of course, hugely important. Man, I don't know. I could go on about Nintendo games all day long.
Yeah, okay. We only got one more left, though, with your honorable mention.
So you're fine with that, and I'm fine with Castlevania. I realize Startropics is kind of a outside the box.
We'll put it on as an honorable mention. I'm trying to think here. Okay, I'm going to read you some names, and then maybe we can pick from these. I'm looking here at a list.
Oh, you pulled up a list. Okay.
So there's Punch-Out. There is Mega Man. No, there's Contra. Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt.
There's Pitfall.
This has become the nostalgia hour for me. Oh my gosh.
Dr. Mario.
Yeah.
Double Dragon. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Bubble Bobble.
Wait. I'm gonna have to throw my hat in the ring for Bubble Bobble. Although you could also give it to Ice Climbers, because here's another thing that the early NES games did that everybody forgot: cooperative play.
They've always been a kind of a fan of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bubble Bobble was brilliant. We're both these cute little dragons, and we blow bubbles, and the bubbles float up, and we capture the bad guys in it. But I could blow a bubble that starts flowing up, and then you could jump on that bubble and use it as a platform to get someplace we couldn't get otherwise. That was brilliant. That was so far ahead of the curve. It took the rest of the industry decades to catch up to that kind of emergent gameplay that players could experience by creating things that other players could use. I gotta give the nod to Bubble Bobble, and I will fight you over it.
I'm not in the mood to fight because you said it's a cooperative thing. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we got our 5 games here. We got Bubble Bobble, Tetris, Castlevania, Mario 3, and Final Fantasy.
Ooh.
And a recommendation for Startropics. Huh?
And do we have to rank those now?
No, that's too much work.
Oh, good, because that would be very hard.
All right.
For first or second.
All right, folks, it's time for you to ask questions to us where we will attempt to answer them in unison because of Bubble Bobble.
Yep.
But while we're waiting,
to anybody who came here for board game stuff and you just got half an hour of me reliving my early 20s, but
there are so many games on this list that give me such nostalgia. Like I saw Spy Hunter. Although Spy Hunter, I never played much on the NES. That was the arcade game.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing for Double Dragon. We played that to death. I burned so many quarters on Double Dragon.
Yeah.
We would get so loud and rowdy they would kick us out of the arcade because we were playing it too loud.
I still wonder if I paid more money for any video game than I paid for some of those early arcade games.
Exactly, yeah. Well, it's just the video game industry has come around full circle with the microtransactions. It's just a quarter. It's just 50 cents.
That's
just
true.
A little bit more.
All right. Let's see. Twice as Dice says, did we play Anticipation? That one I haven't played.
No. I'm assuming that's a board game. Because I gotta
No, it's on the NES.
Calibrate my brain.
No, it's on the NES.
Oh, is it? Anticipation. Oh my gosh. I just did a search for it. No. Oh, this is actually just a recreation of a board game that you could play on the NES. I had no idea this even existed.
All right, well, let's jump to then. What's your favorite console? Well, while he's thinking, I can tell you, for me, it's the Switch. I'm really happy with the Switch. I know it's new, but I like the fact that it's both portable and I can stick it on the big TV. I like that the two controllers can be taken apart, and so I have freedom of my hands where I can kind of lounge in a chair and have my hands stretched like this maybe and play. Or And I also like Nintendo in general. I've always liked Nintendo games better than the rest because I like the silliness of them, maybe.
Oh, I like Nintendo until they fired me. And then they were dead to me for years.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But that's sort of another day. I would have to go, I think... I'm just trying to think in terms of what has brought me the most joy in my life. And I can't say PC, because ultimately I think I'd have to give it to PC. Because it's like EverQuest, World of Warcraft. But sticking to console, I'm going to go with the original PlayStation. One, because it was so transformative. Successfully bringing polygons into our life. Sure, we got a taste of them with Star Fox on the Super NES, but as soon as the first time I played Battle Arena to Shinden or Ridge Racer on the PlayStation, it's like this is. I felt like I was truly transported into these worlds because of it was pushing those polys. Never mind the fact that, of course, Siphon Filter came out on the PlayStation, and that it was my game. I was the lead designer on it, and it changed gens in my life forever. And I would not be where I am today if it weren't for the PlayStation. But I do think, in terms of just a step in the overall evolution, plus so many amazing games, even Final Fantasy VII, were on that platform that defined what modern video games are. The PlayStation is where we defined the true modern video game, and we left the arcades behind. So I would give it to PlayStation 1. The only thing PlayStation 1 was missing is online, which we had to wait till for PlayStation 2. Although, poor Saturn. Saturn, we hardly knew ye. I want to give it to Saturn with that cool little.
I'm not giving it to Saturn.
And you can plug the Tamagotchi thing into the controller, and it had a modem, and it had Seaman with Leonard Nimoy. For me, it had so much stuff. And the Maraca game. This is not a video game channel. I have to remember, this is a board game channel. Sorry, folks.
Well, we'll jump back to board game in a second. A lot of questions were about that. But I felt, for me, it's such a weird thing. Like, when I play a board game, I want to play with lots of people and have a good time. But when I play a video game, that online stuff doesn't appeal to me. I just want to play by myself. I want to go into the world. Like, I like Skyrim and stuff like that because when I go into those worlds, I am the center of the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Which sounds really bad, but in a video game, it's fun for me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, as a former video game designer, too, the fundamental difference between a single-player and a multiplayer game is if you're playing a single-player game, the designer or design team or the developers have crafted everything for one perspective, yours, to make sure everything comes together to make you feel like a hero. Doing design for multiplayer games is a very different beast because instead you are trying to create these circumstances that players can come together and or either to attack each other or to help each other. And it's no longer about that singular hero moment. And I do think that single player gaming does scratch an itch in that way that's really, really important. And to me, I always felt like as the developer and designer of these games, it's like, oh, you're not playing alone. You, when you're playing Siphon Filter, you're playing against me. I made the game. I made it for you to explore and enjoy.
Oh, okay.
And it's like my hand is there. And in a way that when I developed multiplayer games, no, my hand is a little bit more hands off. I'm just trying to create a circumstance so every player's hand can come together. And that's really the difference. It's that change that has ultimately made me walk away from video games because it's so much easier to have a thing that evolves that I can share with my wife because the design of a board game is more about us working together in this world as opposed to this whole world is just about me and one player.
Well, that's a good segue because the next
question... That's what I was trying to do, yeah.
from Jason says, do you think overall cooperative board games are better with fewer players or more?
Okay.
They're definitely almost always easier with fewer players.
Yes. Because that's not always the case, but it does tend to, that's certainly true for Pandemic. The player scaling. Certainly, I think you could objectively say, as a general rule, they are better with more for two reasons. One, chances are the developers really focused on the multiplayer experience, and the two-player experience was kind of look, let's make sure it works for two players as well. That's often the case.
Sure.
And two,
I've heard you harp on this before.
Because it's true. It's true. It's changing. The industry is changing, recognizing that, hey, you can start with two. Stefan Feld always starts with the two-player experience because he does all his testing with his wife. And then he expands them to four players, which maybe that's why I love his games so much. But Oh, what was I just going to say? Yeah, the other thing is, it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that, hey, why are you playing a cooperative game unless it's to have a social experience with somebody else? And we're social creatures, and of course, the more people you can be social with, the richer the experience is. It's more fraught with peril because maybe you don't want to interact with everybody at the table. So there's always that worry, which is why I'm always happy to just be quarantined away in a house because, hey, I've got my best friend, my wife, and my #1 gaming partner, and she's ready to play games with me anytime. But strictly speaking, I think as a general rule, if I can put aside the fact that, why can't you read my mind like Jen can, we probably could have more fun playing with more players. And I would never admit that normally, but only because you're here.
Oh, yes, and the almost 300 people watching. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I like them better with more, but I think that's because you can have a more exciting moment when you win. So, like, when something exciting happens, everyone is like, whoa! I still remember Ghost Stories where everyone was standing up around the table, so excited at the end. And I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a more subdued affair because you're losing that almost party atmosphere.
Yeah. But sometimes that's okay, too, right? You know, hey, let's play this quiet 2-player co-op game.
Yep.
Or not quiet, because I can't imagine you play games quietly. But anyhow.
Yeah.
What color do you each play in board games, or do you play any color?
I never play any color. Because if you end up playing green, you're going to have to swat me away from your pieces all the way through the game, because I just won't be able to help myself. If there's a green player piece on the board, in my brain cannot deprogram itself. Oh, that's mine. I'll move over there. Rahdo, you're purple, remember. So it's always green.
I don't see any green in that game.
If I can't have green, it's yellow or orange. Orange because nobody ever wants to be orange, so it's usually a pretty safe bet. That's true.
If you want to be orange, you're fine.
Exactly. Yeah, orange and brown. Why did they even put those in games? Nobody wants to be Mr. Brown.
Yeah, what is with that? Stop making brown a player color. No one wants it. It's always the last one picked.
Yeah. They're all Reservoir Dogs fans, and they're just making a reference to Steve Buscemi. Which I quote here.
Yeah, please don't. I like purple. I like purple best.
As does my wife. So you and my wife would have to fight over purple.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I'm pretty easy. I'm basically, I do purple, pink, white, black.
Oh, did you say
orange.
your #2 is pink?
Well, I always try to pick a color.
Pink is basically a less dark purple. Okay.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that I pick colors that most people won't pick. Now, in my house, usually one of my kids will pick pink. Pink and red go right away. The kids like those. So usually end up playing brown when I'm playing with the kids because that's the color nobody wants.
Because nobody wants to be brown.
You know what I like, though? I don't care what color I am in a game as much. If we're playing multiple games in a row, I want to be the exact same color between games. Because I hate when I'm playing as a red player, we switch and I'm blue, and I just was in that mindset, you're red, and then I will move your pieces and I don't mean to.
Yep. So I'm such a scatterbrain. Even my first game, it's got to be green. Green or go home. Sorry, if you want to play with me, you can't be green. You'll have to deal with it.
You have to get one of those passive aggressive shirts I see people wear that says, "If you play blue, I will move your pieces."
Coming soon to the Board Game Geek store, I'm sure.
All right, I've been doing a series of videos on my channel called "Games That Changed My Life."
Yes,
so this question is for you. It says, what game changed your life?
Well, I will avoid the easy answers, the games I made that allowed me to have a career for 20 years in the video game industry, although obviously those would be Siphon Filter and Pitfall, Lost Expedition, and Sims, and Fable 2, and Brink, and all the rest of them. So,
humble brag.
And I should limit this to board games, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, it's easy. It's easy. We talked about right up front. Pandemic.
Really?
Pandemic is arguably the single most influential piece of entertainment I have ever experienced in my 50-plus years. Because I'll just briefly give the story for folks who haven't heard it. I was in the video game industry. My wife and I, we played cooperative video games all the time. We were about to go on a week-long driving trip through France. We had a camper van, and I realized, we're not going to be able to play video games. We're going to be at these campsites. I don't know if there's going to be electricity. What are we going to do? And I remembered as a young child playing. My family and I, we had a copy of Travel Scrabble, which was brilliant
Yes.
because you're playing and you could like close the clamshell and it would like save your progress. And I thought that'll be perfect. I haven't played Scrabble since I was a little kid. And I go into a friendly local game store, Blue Highway Games in Seattle, not knowing anything existed other than Magic the Gathering and Warhammer. That was what I thought modern gaming was. And I get the Travel Scrabble, I take it up to the shop, and I say, sir, I'd like to buy this. I don't know what the rest is going on in here, what all this stuff is, but can I buy this? And he refused to sell it to me. I will not sell you that. What is it that you want? What are you looking for? And we spent, I mean, he was one of the best clerks ever because he spent 10 minutes talking about what kind of things we like, what are our, what type of people we are. And he ultimately came down to, right, okay, you want either Red November or Pandemic. You want to buy one of these two.
Whew, I'm glad you got Pandemic.
Can you imagine? No offense to Red November. He suggested that one because, hey, it's cooperative and it's a tiny box and you're going to be in a camper van, so that'll probably make more sense.
Okay, that's fair.
And if I had gone, and it was a coin toss. I could have easily gone with that one. The only reason I went with Pandemic is because my wife, completely unrelated, is hugely into contagion, post-apocalypse, kind of very appropriate for the world we live in today. She's always loved that subject matter, so I thought, she'll probably like this one more. And we took that on our trip. And while we had a great trip, we were seeing Mont Saint-Michel and Paris and all that, the things we remember most about that trip was getting back to our camper van late after we'd seen whatever we saw through the day, and under a flickery fluorescent light in our camper van, playing another game of Pandemic. And losing a different way every night.
Tonight we're going to lose to Outbreaks.
Okay, we solved that problem. Oh my gosh, there's this. We ran out of cards this time. We didn't even know that happens. And we came back from that fundamentally transformed. It transformed our entire relationship because we realized, are there more of these? Is that what all that other stuff was? What's this Board Game Geek website? Oh my gosh. And I'm sure, as many people watching, went on a voyage of discovery that ultimately led to me retiring from the video game industry because I got so into board games, video games couldn't entertain me anymore. And so I literally changed careers to become a board game aficionado. And since then, I have not played a AAA. I mean, maybe I should get a Switch. Only recently, only within the last couple months, have I found video games starting to capture my attention again because I got an Oculus Quest.
Got it. Okay.
And that's pretty impressive. I'm really surprised by that. Maybe video games can pull me back away from my true love, but Pandemic changed my life forever.
I like that story. That's good. Yeah. Well, here's the next question then, back to video games. Have either of us played Rock Band? And if so, were you any good, and what part of the band did you play?
My favorite part was rocking the mic. Oh, man. I'm okay at guitar. I think the designers made a terrible mistake with the way they implemented drums in that game because you literally really have to play the drums. There's no shortcuts. You are literally playing. You're having to deal with feet and hands at the same time. And it makes me so appreciative of just what skill it takes to be a really amazing drummer. That's the one thing I got out of Rock Band. I had a friend who was a drummer. I said, "Oh, Ed, I had no idea. You're a genius because this is hard."
I think what it is
yeah.
So drums is my favorite part of Rock Band, actually.
Oh, really?
It is. I really like it because it's physical and I feel like I'm doing it. I think overall people underestimate drummers in general. You just sit there and go, that guy just goes boom, 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 boom.
Anybody could do that. I could do that. My kid does it all the time.
No, and you actually have to work up I think it's your calf muscle. Mm-hmm. To be able to be able to do that more than maybe 5 minutes will hurt most people because you don't use that muscle that much. We do this with our hands a lot, so you're probably okay there. But I really like the drums. So you and I can be in the same Rock Band then.
There you go. But who takes the mic?
You can have the mic.
I expect you would probably rock it pretty well too, because I had to take the mic because I play this a lot with my coworkers at Splash Damage in London, and if anybody else has a mic, I'm going to Wichita, or hold on, ready or not, you live for a fight when that's all that you got. Whoa! And I'm like, come on, dude, shout it from the rooftops. So I always felt like I had to be the outgoing, gregarious one. And even though I can't, you always make the argument anybody could sing. I might disprove that, but
no. I feel like anybody could sing if they're trained. I feel like not anybody, but most people can.
Yeah.
It's like anything else.
Yep.
Okay, here's the question.
Okay.
How do you manage all your media and backups for your videos?
I'll let you take it first because you're crazy about this.
Well, we have a server here. I want to say it's 20 to 30 terabytes, I think.
Wow.
We just recently got this, and so I know the guys are backing up stuff on that. The problem is stuff gets bigger and bigger. Each person at Dice Tower has a 4 terabyte or 2 or 4 terabyte drive, and I have to be honest, we almost never go to those. So once they're on YouTube, unless YouTube itself crashes, which would actually cause a problem in humanity, since it's about 70% of internet usage right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't need to keep them. I mean, I do sometimes, but I don't keep everything because it's on YouTube.
You're backing up just like the final product, right? You're not backing up the individual elements so that you can.
No. I don't think people realize how much space that is. Like if I recorded this on my good camera, it would probably be, I don't know, 30 terabytes.
Yeah.
You couldn't keep that. That's way too much space. It would. People do not realize how much raw file footage is. It's huge.
Oh God, yeah. Yep. And if you ever download a YouTube video and that was like 600 megs, it wasn't when you recorded it. It was 3 gigs when you recorded it.
That's correct.
Before YouTube crunched it down with its compression. See, here's the thing. I was curious about this because I don't understand why you do it all. Because my solution is YouTube. I guess I could get a 30 terabyte drive, but why? Why duplicate that effort? Are you doing it for that apocalyptic, oh my God, they shut me down kind of thing?
Well, it's not so much that.
Are you worried about getting one too many flags against you for adult content and they shut down the Dice Tower?
That's
can't
true. The adult content. Redundancy? Come on now. You've worked in tech. Redundancy, right?
Well, that's the thing. I guarantee you the YouTube servers have probably got tons of redundancy built in. I can't imagine how many how many billions of whatever goes beyond terabyte storage they've got. They're backing everything up.
But even still, we have a decent amount of pre-generated content like introductions, and that takes up a lot. The different things that we build. There's so much of that.
You made a little intro for this show, which I was so tickled. I had no idea you were going to do that because, of course, I'm the opposite of you. I'm very. Hey, I'll just hold this sign up in front of the camera and say, welcome, everybody.
Well, Roy Canaday has built everything for this show. We actually, when you see us later, there's like an overlay for it. Roy built that too. So,
well, he's doing great work. Well done, Roy. I think we all salute you.
In the last 3 or 4 years, we've been able to do live stuff that looks pretty good. Like, I'm actually using my little camera here because the amount of work it is to hook up the big camera, and also there's a chance that at some point you and I will be doing this I might be in a small room somewhere, so I want to keep the same camera.
Sure.
But I like the concept of the live streaming. It definitely saves us some work in the sense that we don't have to upload it to the internet, but then you're also at the mercy of the internet connection.
Yeah. So for storage, YouTube stores it. If it all disappears one day, hey, you know what? That means all my really horrible early videos that I was filming with an iPhone, they suddenly disappear and I don't have to be embarrassed about them anymore, quite frankly. Because nothing's worse than one of my most viewed videos of all time is my Castles of Burgundy run through. And the problem with that was I had filmed it in the evening. It was starting to get dark. I filmed it. I made a huge blunder. And I got to pull this down immediately, like 10 minutes after I put it up. And I'm going to record it right now and get it right back up. And it had gotten so dark that I filmed it with the flashlight on my iPhone as the only source of light. So it is literally one of the worst looking videos you will ever see on YouTube. But it's one of my, if people keep going and finding it and they're like, oh man, if that just disappeared someday, that would be okay. If people would stop watching that.
Alrighty, well that's a fast hour here, folks. The time goes by quickly, but we'll be back again on Tuesday on the Dice Tower channel, and then back again here next Friday. Before we go, any videos that people should be looking for coming out from you soon?
Well, we talked about this. Of course, my Frosthaven video. Actually, like 3 games are launching on Kickstarter next week, all on the same day, and 2 of them are in big trouble because they're going up against Frosthaven. Let me give a little bit of a shout out because everybody knows that's coming. If my computer will wake up, come on, give me my list.
Wake up, computer!
It's coming. You can do it Microsoft Word, Office 365, activate. And let's see. So, yeah, next week, Frosthaven comes out the same day as Squire for Hire, which I told you about in last episode. That's going to be on Kickstarter. Wonderful little micro game. And also on the same day, Planet Unknown. Do you realize, Tom, I would love to go back and redo that top 10 most influential games of the last decade with you, because I was very remiss in not talking about Patchwork. Patchwork, which has now, I believe, directly led to so many polyomino games. Everybody's chasing that polyomino tiger. And I got to say, Planet Unknown, I think, is one of the best ones I've seen yet. Imagine a really simplified, streamlined terraforming Mars that is all about laying tiles and building your engine. It's phenomenal. And I hope it finds an audience, seeing as how it's coming out the same day as Frosthaven.
I think it can, because not everyone's going to want to get Frosthaven too. So
sure.
We'll see. Alrighty. Well, other videos are coming out on our channels. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much, Rahdo, as always. Next time, a different console system. No, we'll talk about board games. We'll promise.
Okay, yeah. Probably a good idea. All right, well, talk to you soon, Tom.
Alrighty. See y'all.
Bye-bye.